going on, guys, and welcome to the LowKick MMA Weekly Roundup. I'm your host, Ryan Galloway, and joined as always by Jordan Ellis. First off today, we're going to recap UFC 263. We had Israel Adesanya defending his title against Marvin Vettori. Had another title fight, had another 5-round fight before that, and the card had pretty much a bit of everything. What did you think?
Yeah, it's a good card. Lots of highlight moments. I think, Israel Adesanya kind of bounced back in the way a lot of people expected them to, and then, some great moments. I'm looking forward to getting into.
Absolutely, and so we'll jump straight in at the top there. Adesanya takes out Vettori. On all the judges' scorecards, it was a wash, 5 rounds nil. It wasn't that hard on Vettori. I thought he maybe scored one if you really wanted to stretch it, 2 rounds. I thought the first round was quite competitive, and I thought the third round, I believe, when he had his back, I thought that was the best round he had in the fight. But he definitely didn't win the fight, and I could see the argument for giving Israel all 5 rounds. How would you have scored that bout?
I didn't really think about scores. The fact that he got all 5 rounds didn't surprise me, and I weren't I weren't thinking after the fight, oh, they've been a bit harsh on Vettori. I thought it was a pretty much a wash. It was very easy. If anything, I think Adesanya will be annoyed that he didn't pump the gas and try and go for the finish there, because Vettori didn't do anything at all really impressive. I know he got his back for a moment, but he dealt with everything he had pretty easily in the end. And yeah, it was an easy fight. So every round is okay for me. I think, as you said, he might have nicked one. I think 2 would be probably a push, but maybe 1. It was very dominant from Israel.
Absolutely. And I mean, when we broke down the fight, I said to you, the later this fight goes, I see Israel finally finish, because I think Vettori fatigues. He didn't really fatigue in this fight. He was kind of himself the whole way through. Maybe fatigued a little bit. But even at the start of the fight, he could not get the takedowns he wanted. He got a couple in the open mat, but as soon as it went to the cage, there's just no way to take down Israel. And I think that was something we saw in the Blachowicz fight as well. Like, the takedowns that Blachowicz was able to get were in the open mat. He wasn't able to get him down in the cage, and that's just a testament to how good Adesanya's takedown defense is there. Do you think that kind of, I don't know, pinpoints the game plan for further opponents to see that in the open mat you can get him down? It's just against the cage, there's no point in trying. Do you think that's something people are going to pick up on?
I think it's holding him down at middleweight. I think it's one thing getting him down, but holding him down at middleweight size does matter when it comes to wrestling. And I think obviously someone of Jan's size is able to pin him down and keep him down, whereas he was just able to explode out of Vittori's things. And Vittori's pretty stacked for middleweight, but there is a big difference. So I think Israel, that might be the game plan for some people. I just don't see anyone holding them down at that weight. I think mixing in the striking with the wrestling is probably the best bet to go on. And Vettori just didn't have that. He just seemed to be gung-ho on the wrestling, and it just didn't work. And we've seen some impressive moments from Israel, who answered the questions that a lot of people have got after his last performance. He was able to explode. He was able to get back up, and it was very impressive when he did. And even when he got his back took and the choke appeared to be there, he slid right round and got back to a really strong position. So I think they're the moments where Israel will take from the fight a lot of satisfaction, because I'm sure he shut a lot of people up.
And that's another thing really for Israel. The middleweight division is not full of grapplers, right? Like in the top 10 of the division, the best grappler, the most grappling heavy fighter on there might be Vettori or Hermanson if he's still in there. But otherwise, there's no one that's really going to rely on that. So Israel's really going to be able to stand with pretty much every opponent he has. I think the Whittaker fight, to me, is more interesting now after seeing Israel lose, after seeing this fight. I have more interest in watching Whittaker fight, because I do believe Whittaker is a better jiu-jitsu player than Vettori is. Maybe he's not as heavy a wrestler. I know he's got a bit of a wrestling pedigree, but he doesn't really use it in his fights, does he? But if he can get Israel down, I think he can keep him there. I honestly do. Because if you look at how Israel deals when he is on the ground, he doesn't use perfect technique to get himself back up. He looks for like little opportunities where he can just burst his energy and get back to his feet. And I think if Whittaker can get him down, he's not going to have those opportunities. What do you think? Are you interested in that fight now? I know that's what they're doing next.
Yeah, it's the fight to make. He's clearly the number one contender. He's the best of the rest, and I think he has got that wrestling pedigree. I think if anyone's going to be able to keep him down, it's going to be Whittaker, because obviously he's a striker. He's known for striking, but at some point you've kind of got to accept that if I'm going to strike with Israel Adesanya, I'm going to be at a disadvantage. Even as good as Robert Whittaker is, he's not a kickboxer with about how many fights? About 100 fights or 80, 90 fights he had in kickboxing. So Robert Whittaker's never going to get to that level, and I think it's okay to accept that and say, okay, we'll mix in. I can still strike with him, but I can mix in the wrestling too. And as we've seen in the flyweight title fight, that take the easiest road to victory. And I think what Whittaker's smart enough. Since he's come back from his layoff, he seems to be on the ball, and I think that will be his game plan. It'll be heavy wrestling. We've seen him utilize it against Darren Till in that 5th round, which probably got him the win as well. So he's not shy about it. And it's a brilliant fight next, and I hope we do get it, sooner rather than later.
And even if it is heavy wrestling, like we're saying, I think it'll be a fun fight. I don't think it'll be like this Vettori fight where he's trying to wrestle, he can't do anything. Because Whittaker's going to want to stand there with him. If he can't get him down, he's not going to waste his time pursuing the takedown. He's going to reset and stand with him. And I think the problem, if you look at that first fight they had, Whittaker was doing fine. He would have won that first round had he not got dropped right at the end, He was standing with him pretty evenly. It's just once they got to exchanging in the pocket, there's a clear difference in timing and speed and skill, So I think Whittaker can do all right standing with him. It's just he really needs to be a mixed martial artist. He's not going to out kickbox the kickboxer. And I mean, Adesanya's grappling is just getting better every day. So someone's going to have to catch him soon. Otherwise, it's going to be to a point where anyone's going to really struggle to find any weakness in his game.
Yeah, it's most of the time I feel like he was still able to get taken down. Marvin Vettori is a good wrestler, but he's not necessarily known as an elite level wrestler. He's just a very good guy and he's relentless. But I think Whittaker will be able to get him down. I think Adesanya can only improve so much on that side. It's just keeping him down is the question for me. He's really big at the weight, and I think Whittaker, that's the question. Can Whittaker keep him down? Once he's on the floor, can he do damage? Because Vettori, when he got him down, was unable to do any real damage. And that's why even in the rounds that he might have got a takedown, I probably leant towards Adesanya because he popped back up and started to go to work on that type of stuff. So, yeah, brilliant fight. I think Whittaker is the man. If anyone's going to dethrone Adesanya, it's going to be Whittaker. And I'm sure he's chomping at the bit to get that fight back because last time he didn't do himself justice. And he's been going through these contenders like butter. So it's interesting fight. Cannot wait. And it's going to be on your side of the world, isn't it? So it's hopefully have a big crowd for that as well.
I don't think it'll be here because Dana White said there's no way they're going to Australia or New Zealand this year, and they want to do it in October. So I'd say it'll be in Vegas or maybe even in the UK if you guys are having events. Who knows?
Oh, I'd love that. It seems a shame that we don't get these fights. That's a fight made for you guys. It should be in front of a large crowd. Unfortunately, that's the way of the world at the minute. But we're happy to still have it, and I'm sure they'll have a crowd in for that one. I'm loving having the crowds back. I hope they're back for every event sooner rather than later. But for now, we'll take the pay-per-views, and maybe that'll be a big one for Vegas or maybe even the UK.
Who knows? We'll jump on to the co-main event, other title fight in this card. Deiveson Figueiredo lost his title to Brandon Moreno, and I think I really need to split this into two things when we break it down. First, I want to talk about Moreno's performance, and then we'll talk about Figueiredo's performance. But Brandon Moreno looks exceptional in this fight. He showed everything. His grappling, his striking, his timing, his speed. He was the perfect he's ever been. He looked fantastic, and to see him be so happy when he finally got that belt, it made me happy, man. I enjoyed seeing that. What do you think of Brandon Moreno's performance?
Yeah, well, I've been rooting for him for ages. Every time we speak, I've been talking him up. But the last time we spoke, I was saying I picked against him. And we even went through the fight. I was saying his route to victory is on the floor. I just didn't think he'd take it. I think he's quite comfortable on the feet, so I didn't think he'd go for the floor. But obviously his coaches are very smart, and he did the right thing. He pursued the takedown. He seen his where his strength lie, and he went for it. So I'm very happy. I've been rooting for him ever since he was on the Ultimate Fighter. Picked dead last. He was the worst of the bunch. And to come all this way, get cut, come back. He's such a great fight to watch, and he's so, as you said, he's quite an infectious person. So I've interviewed him before, and you can sit there smiling at him because he's a very nice guy and he's got a nice aura about him. So, but the way he speaks, he just cheers you up. So it's great to have him as a champion, and especially after a performance like that, where there just was no doubt he was the better fighter. He was the champion in there. Start to finish, he dominated the fight. Figueiredo, I don't even know if he landed the glove on him. It was the perfect fight, and Moreno, you just can't help but be happy for him because he's a lovely guy, 27 years old now. And his future's bright. He's got it all ahead of him. He's probably still going to get better. And he's the man.
And I'll switch gears now to Figueiredo. I think he wasn't himself in this fight. He looked drained. He didn't look like himself. I don't know. I don't want to say it's the weight cut because I don't want to make excuses. Moreno's the better fighter. He's the champion. Awesome to see him get that belt. But Figueiredo wasn't the same Figueiredo in his last 2 fights. Can you agree on that?
I think he looked good. He weren't the same in his last fight as well? Did you say?
Yeah. I don't think he was the same. The last one was with Moreno, right? The first fight.
Yeah, I think he looked great in that fight. I think he looked perfect. In this fight, he didn't do
No,
anything.
sorry. I meant in this fight, he didn't look like he did in those last 2 fights.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think Moreno, you've just got to give all props to him, really, because maybe that's why Figueiredo didn't look good, but Figueiredo was last to the scale, I think.
Yeah.
So it's always a tough cut, and it's time to move up, isn't it? Because there's no rematch
100%.
on the horizon. Do we want to see this fight again? I don't. Moreno dominated, so we move on to the next one, I think. I'd love to see Figueiredo go up. I don't want to make any excuses or suggest any excuses because that would take away from Moreno, who was an underdog coming in. He was an underdog last time and he had more excuses, even though I think Figueiredo performed admirably. He looked great last time. They were talking about, he was sick or he was this and he's that. But the fact of the matter is, they've done 8 rounds and Moreno has been the better man over 8 rounds so far. So, yeah, all props to Moreno. Figueiredo, he's obviously got that history of weight issues. But if it was that much of an issue, he'll go up, and that's what I expect him to do now.
Look, if you're making weight with 40 seconds left and then crying when you get off the scale and you've made weight, you need to move up. I don't like to see people put themselves through that to stay in the division. And the perfect fight has just lined itself up for him. Cody Garbrandt lost his last fight. It's not like he's going to be in title contention. You can throw Figueiredo against Garbrandt, and if he gets a win there, you could arguably give him a number 1 contender fight or a title fight himself, I think that is the perfect matchmaking. They were meant to fight at 125. I have no interest in seeing Garbrandt go to 125 and fight Moreno. That fight does nothing for me. I'd rather see Moreno fight Askarov or whoever's like, is that his name? Anyway, whoever's like at the top of that division. I don't want to see these 35ers coming down. I want to see Figueiredo going up.
Yeah, I think that's the way to go. I'm not sure. I think Cody, if it's time for him to move down, he won't get an immediate shot. But I think when you've lost to Rob Font is not necessarily the creme of the creme at that weight division. He could be in the future, but right now he's not. So I think he's Cody Garbrandt's 2 or 3 fights away from being in title contention at this point, and he's had his eye on that 125 division for so long. He might just drop down, win 1 fight, and then get a title shot. But it's an exciting time because I've got no idea who's next for Moreno, but it's definitely not Figueiredo. It's definitely not Cody. So potentially them two could fight at 135, but I think we're going to see them two pass each other and one go up, one go down. And there's fun fights for Figueiredo at 135. He's a big guy, he's a puncher. He'll be fine at that weight. I don't think he'll struggle at all. So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, we've got a new champion. It's Moreno. So I couldn't be happier for him. He's a brilliant fighter, really nice guy, and it's great to see these guys come from being in the UFC. I think he was at 21. He come early. They might struggle early fights. We're seeing it with Chase Super at the minute. You're in the UFC. You're fighting the best of the best. At such a young age, you've got so much potential. So you can never write these guys off. And Moreno's just proved that.
Last thing I'll say on this is, I think that a fight I'd really like to see, probably doesn't make sense for next, but I think I would like to see it, is a rematch between Brandon Moreno and Brandon Royval, because that fight, for how long it lasted until the injury, was just insane. That was so much fun. So I think that could be a fun one, but we'll move on. Obviously, before that, we had the other 5-round fight of the evening between Leon Edwards and Nate Diaz, and Leon Edwards dominated the fight for 24 minutes, yet he's not the one getting the shine after the fight. The one getting the shine of the fight is Diaz, who managed to put him on shaky legs with a minute left. What were you thinking then, being a guy from your neck of the woods? Yeah?
I thought Leon Edwards looked perfect pretty much the whole fight. He looked perfect, and I think Diaz looked good. Although he was getting beat up a lot, I thought this was the best version of Diaz I've seen in a while. I think he looked better than he did against Pettis and Masvidal. So props to him for that, because he did hang in there. He was a threat the whole fight, but he was on the losing side, and that's because Edwards is so technical. He's so gifted. But it's such a shame. It was so close to being perfect, and then he just gets binged by that. So. But in all honesty, it could have been worse if Nate Diaz didn't stop to pause and admire his work and be the joker that he is. He could have finished that fight one more clean punch, and Edwards was going out. So Yeah, although it weren't the perfect performance, I think Edwards kind of just got to breathe a sigh of relief and say, okay, I got through it. I've took a punch I shouldn't have took. And for me, I was thinking that Edwards was standing a bit too much in the pocket. He was trying to get the KO. He was trying to make the statement. And I think in the 4th and 5th round, I was feeling that as a fan sitting at home. I felt he was standing a bit too long. Maybe it was tiredness. Maybe it was, fatigue, or maybe he was trying to go for that KO, which I thought. And yeah, he made to pay for it. Nate Diaz is dangerous for the whole 5 rounds, and he'll get the shine. He'll get it. But Leon Edwards looked great, and I don't want to take away from that for one moment, 30 seconds of a fight when he dominated for 24 minutes, as you said.
Yeah, and you know that if Diaz had to pull it off, the narrative going into his title fight would have been always dangerous Nate Diaz. You can never count him out. Even though he was busted, he had gashes on his head, gashes above his eyes, blood everywhere. Yeah, he didn't really have anything for Edwards until that last minute. And Edwards, I don't want to see him get a title shot next just because I want to see Colby, but he probably deserves it, right? He's probably the one who deserves the title shot right now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's 9 wins in a row. It's besides that no contest, he's looked flawless, and even in that he looked brilliant. So, and I think he keeps getting better. But these are as long as he's getting big fights, it's okay. So I think if he gets that Masvidal fight, it's still a big fight. It's still a huge fight, and he's getting the credit he deserves. It's just if they want him to fight some other contender, or the Wonder Boy fight, I don't really want to see him. It needs to be these big money fights, or it needs to be a title shot. And I hope that's what he gets. I think he does deserve the title shots, but as you said, I want to see that Colby rematch as well. So it is unfortunate for Leon where he's the guy suffering, and so often it does seem like he's the one getting pushed to the side. And it was interesting that Usman kind of said after it that he didn't deserve it, which is I don't know. I don't like the fact that they're using the fact that he lost to Usman 6 years ago as an excuse for not booking this fight. It's 2 totally different fighters. It doesn't make sense to say, oh, he already beat him when it was 6 years ago. So I don't like that narrative, but Leon will get it eventually. And in the meantime, hopefully he makes a boatload of money, beating up Masvidal.
100%. I think that'd be, to be honest, I'd take Edwards all day in that fight. I don't think it'd be very similar to this fight between Masvidal and Edwards. Obviously, Masvidal's a little bit more dangerous, even though Diaz looked pretty dangerous in that 5th round. But I'd still take Edwards in that one. As for Nate Diaz, I'm telling you, the UFC need to book it now. Tony Ferguson versus Nate Diaz at welterweight, 5 rounds. Could you imagine that? Blood everywhere, elbows. That would be hectic. What do you think?
Yeah, it's the fight to make, and it's so great hearing him post fight, being optimistic, saying he wants to turn around quite quickly. Yeah, 3 or 4 months he wants to fight. Nick Diaz is coming back. We would potentially get them on the same card, which is it could potentially be epic. So either one of them, Diaz brothers against Tony Ferguson, is the fight to make. I don't know what the holdup is. I don't know what's going on, but it's just go and make it. Yeah, it just makes all the sense of the world. So hopefully that's what we get next. I'm always looking forward to seeing Nate Diaz. I still think he's got a lot to offer, and I think he looked good in that fight. He was just against the best of the best at welterweight. He really was, and he was outclassed for much of it. But he was tough. He was game. He was always in it, as we seen at the end. And he can punch. He can punch even at welterweight. He's not the small lightweight he used to be. He used to get a bit out muscled at that weight, but now he's a really big guy at 170. I think he could cause trouble for a lot of the the top 10. But I'd prefer to see him in these fun fights, as you said. So Tony Ferguson, Nick Diaz, hopefully in the next few months.
Hopefully. I don't think we'll see it, but I would pay good money for that. We'll keep rattling off through these. Not a lot to say in this one, but Damian Maia lost to Bilal Muhammad. Seems like he's going to get cut after this one. Maia just looks old, doesn't he? He just I wouldn't say he looks old. He just doesn't have that ability. He doesn't have that young man strength anymore. He can't get people down. And maybe people have just gotten better, but he really did struggle in this fight, and he lost a pretty boring decision.
And we've seen it quite a few times with Damian Maia, is that if he doesn't get that takedown, that's the type of fight you get with him relentlessly pursuing it, despite the fact that he's not even close to getting it. So it turns into this absolute snooze fest, as we've seen when he was in there with Tyron Woodley. We've seen there when he was in with Anderson Silva. It just turns into an absolute shit show. And I think the UFC will be delighted to get him off the books, because he's been around a while. I bet he's on a lot of money, and he just doesn't deliver for what the UFC are probably paying him at this point. So Yeah, he's gone now. I'm sure he'll go off and he'll do some jiu-jitsu tournaments, and he's been a fantastic UFC fighter, make no mistake about it. But at 43 years old, he's pretty irrelevant at this point in time in the welterweight division, especially after a loss like that to Belal Muhammad, who didn't look fantastic himself, but he's not a top tier guy, is he? So you'd expect if Maia still got anything to offer, he would have been coming through that fight, and he wasn't able to. So yeah, great servant, great fighter, but I think time is now to cut him.
I agree. The timing's everything because look, before he'd only lost to those top guys. He had a title shot at middleweight, a title shot at welterweight. I can't even think of who he's lost to that's like not a top guy. Aside from now, Belal Muhammad. He lost to Gilbert Burns, lost to Tyron Woodley, he lost to Colby Covington, Kamaru Usman. These are guys that 90%, 95% of the division are going to lose to. So nothing to criticize with those losses. But if you're losing to Belal Muhammad, who's arguably not a top 10 guy, he hasn't really fought many of the top 10 guys, yeah, might be time to hang it up. But it was good to see him one last time. I really want him to get into that submission grappling game. I think that's a really good move for him. If he does like some of the Polaris comps or something like that, EBI, that could be fun. But yeah, pretty much that'll wrap up that fight. Opening the main card, we had some more jiu-jitsu, this time more effective. Paul Craig submits Jamal Hill, hands him his first loss in a brutal fight, which looked like an arm break, but I'm told was just a dislocation. They popped it back in.
Yeah, it's not good either way, is it? I don't know why a dislocation's better than a break anyway, because it keeps dislocating once it's dislocated once, doesn't it? So it was tough, and it looked like Paul Craig was gonna snap the arm just by holding it. He went even putting an arm bar in. Yeah, he just had it in a really tight lock, and his arm was bending already. So it was just it was disgusting to watch, and it was crazy that the referee let it carry on. But as we're talking about jiu-jitsu, Paul Craig's only just got his black belt, and he's one of the most effective jiu-jitsu players in MMA. It does know he's transferred, and he's a guy who's not necessarily, one of these really famous black belts who we talk about, but he's so effective with it. He looked fantastic, and there was a bit of heat, a bit of rivalry coming into this, so it was great to see him just end it, and it was savage. It was a horrible thing to watch, and the referee took some stick, and rightly so. But Paul Craig looked fantastic, brilliant win.
Yeah, and when you're a young, fit, athletic guy the size of Paul Craig, you can jump up and pull guard and stuff like that. I can't imagine Damian Maia going up to Belal Muhammad and just pulling guard, right? So, but for Paul Craig, it was really impressive. I'm really keen to see what he does next. I didn't give him enough credit in this fight. When we previewed it, I said his only chance of winning is if he gets clipped, ends up on his back, but didn't think he would end up taking the fight to the ground on his back. So, props to him. Really impressed. Want to see what he does next. But we'll get to the featured prelim, which was the best fight on this card. The best fight, I'd say. More competitive than any other fights, and it was just a war, wasn't it? Drew Dober versus Brad Riddell. Both guys just throwing heat, landing heat. Riddell was hurt early, Dober was hurt late. What do you think of this one?
Brilliant fight. It was just two fellas who put it all on the line and just decided, yeah, we're going to swing it out. And I thought Dober had him early, and then I thought Riddell had him late, and it was a great fight. And both, they go on with 50k. They deserved it. Both earned it, and it was a big win for Riddell. I was saying that I thought Dober's experience might see him through, but to go in, stand on the feet with Drew Dober, who we made clear that the way to beat him is take him down, submit him. We've seen it a few times. Riddell weren't bothered about that. He went in, he traded with them, he took his best, and then he come back, and there was only going to be one winner. If that fight went into a fourth and fifth round, I think Riddell was going to pour it on and stop Dober, but he survived, and I think the judges got the decision right in the end.
No, I agree with you there. Although I'd like to see both guys win, that doesn't happen in MMA. But it was a fantastic fight. I'll watch it another time if they want to run it back. But for Riddell, early, he looked done. His legs went out. It looked like it was very, very, very dangerous for him. But his ability to just recover from that and then just take over the fight and consistently land those shots. And Drew Dober's chin is like nothing else. I don't know what they do at Team Elevation to train their chins, but between Justin Gaethje and Drew Dober, you just can't finish those guys. I know Riddell wants Gregor Gillespie next, if I can say his name. I don't know what to think about that fight. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think they were booked, weren't they, originally to face off? I think Gregor looked great in his last fight as well. So I thought he'd maybe gone above Brad Riddell at this point, but to get that win over Dober, not anymore. I really do like that fight, and since we didn't get it last time, I'd like to get it this time. Yeah, I do. I really do like that fight, and it could potentially be one for the undercard of Rob and Izzy too. That could be on there. It'd be a fun fight, and yeah, I'm on the Riddell train now. I'm fully on board. I thought that was a very impressive performance. It was the name he needed on his record, the performance he needed on a big card, and yeah, I'm sure he's got a lot of new fans, including myself, after that one.
All right, we'll keep rolling on. The fight you said was going to be fight of the night here. Eric Anders versus Darren Stewart. What happened, Jordan?
I don't know why I picked the fight now, because I've seen Anders have a few snooze fests, but I thought after his last performance, he was dominating the fight. I thought he'd go back out there and try and just pick up where he left off, and Darren Stewart would be able to answer that, but he just didn't. And obviously, they're both fighting at light heavyweight, so that puts a bit more weight on them. It didn't do any favors for this fight, and apparently Darren Stewart planned to stay at light heavyweight, and he didn't look great at all either. So. It was a poor fight, let's be honest. And I have seen a few of them from Anders where he gets almost like Damian Maia, but Damian Maia has a goal, because if he gets you to the ground, he gets the submission. Basically, Anders was just, I've seen him a few times, when he hunts the takedown and he just gets locked in on it, and it weren't happening. It was a poor fight, and it was such a shame that we actually had to watch that rematch. It's not necessarily a big fight. It's like the Ankalaev one we watched a few months ago. It's not something we needed, but yeah, such a shame. I think Darren Stewart's struggling a bit at the minute. Every time I see him interviewed, I spoke to him myself on one of the conference calls. He seems a bit down. I don't think he's feeling the motivation he once had. I don't want to put words or any ideas in his head, but I just see him like he's not fired up after that Kevin Holland loss. I think it's stung a bit, and he's had to regroup, and he hasn't been able to do it. But yeah, poor fight, and stupid pick from me for fight tonight.
That's all right. We all have those. Before that, we did have a pretty good bout between Lauren Murphy and Joanne Calderwood. Pretty important for their division, and Murphy came out on top. Did you agree with the decision there?
No. I thought it was pretty clear. It was pretty easy to score. It was 2-1. The round wasn't number 2 was really big for Lauren Murphy, so I wouldn't have argued with a draw, because it could have been a 10-8. I don't think it was, because she didn't really do any damage, but she had a really strong position. So I think Calderwood should have won, but you can't take away. It was a close fight, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who thought Murphy won as well. So she'll go on. She'll be the next in line, but does it really matter at this point? I don't think Shevchenko would hear a peep out to either of these girls anyway. So I'm sure Jojo will get one more win, and she'll be back, and she'll be next in line after Lauren. So yeah, good fight, competitive fight. I thought Jojo should have won, but as we say, we get a lot of these split decisions, and it's not surprising when they go one way or the other.
Yeah, I thought that was a fun fight. It was close, so I don't really have a pick on who I thought would have won, because I can't remember. But hey, Lauren Murphy gets the shot. Oh, well, let's hope so, and then we'll see who gets it after that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And she's next in line. I think that's 5 or 6 wins. So despite what you think, she's been competitive in every fight and all. I think she had a close one with Dan Ige, but she got the rub of the green. And yeah, she deserves it. She's very deserving. Despite what I think, it is a toss-up. It was a close fight. I think Jojo won, but I don't argue with the decision. It was a fine decision, and Lauren, she gave as good as she got. So I'm sure she'll be fine, and she'll go on, and she will get that shot. There's no one else there.
Yeah, we'll keep rattling through these, because we've still got to preview this coming week's card. The last one on the prelims was Movsab Evelev versus Hakeem Dawodu. One thing I will say about this fight, because it was pretty clear it was dominant by Evelev, the one thing I will mention was the crowd were pathetic, booing this dude while he's on his back, like working for submissions. That was fun grappling, and the crowd is just going off on him. Did you see that?
The crowd were booing all night, weren't they? Anytime you got any type of wrestling exchange, they weren't having it. So yeah, it was a good fight. He's a really good prospect, isn't he? I think a lot of people are high on him. So and that was a good win for him. Yeah, it weren't the best fight ever, but it weren't something I'd be booing. I'm not really a booer anyway, but it's definitely not something worth booing. I think the Damian Muhammad one or the Anders one, they're worth getting a bit of stick for. This one was a fun fight, I thought.
Yeah, no, agreed. We'll keep rattling through them. I'll just pick out a couple here. Matt Favola got finished by the debut of Terrence McKinney in 7 seconds. Pretty impressive stuff, but then he goes and breaks his knee or whatever. He jumps up in the cage and hurts himself. Do you think that took away from his 7-second knockout?
No, it was brilliant. It was brilliant, and it was just 1-2 down the pipe, game over. I think Travola had a bit of a moan about the stoppage, but I thought it was fine. He went protecting himself. He was pretty much out as far as I could see, and it was sensational stuff from McKinney. I think it was a last minute call as well. So to see him go in and do a job like that on Travola, who's notoriously a tough guy. Brilliant debut, and I don't even think he officially got a bonus for that. The quickest knockout in lightweight history. He didn't get an official bonus. I know he got paid, but he weren't part of Dana White's official list. So that was a strange one as well. And that just says we had a great night. If someone doing that doesn't automatically get in the bonus section, because it was fantastic in terms of debuts. It couldn't have gone better, until the fight finished, and then he hurt his knee, but it couldn't have gone better for him.
No, I agree. Keep going. Chase Hooper fought Steven Peterson. Hooper tried to rally in that second round. He did his grappling. He tried his best, but the striking was causing issues, obviously. And Peterson, a bit dirty on the glove touch in that third round, but otherwise got the win.
Yeah, it was... It's as we said earlier with Moreno, you come into the UFC early. We've seen it with Max Holloway as well. You might struggle. Some of these guys might have a bit too much of you, but eventually he will get there. And I think Hooper looked good. He seemed to make slight improvements in his striking, but I think he should just take a year off and potentially go to Wonderboy. I know he's planning to go to Thailand. If he can get over there, go Thailand, work on his striking, because there really is no rush. He's clearly got an issue there that he needs to fix, and he's addressing it. He just needs to, take the time. He doesn't need to be fighting, every few months. He's a young guy. There's no rush. Go and work on your striking, work on yourself, come back a better fighter. I hope that's what he does. 21 years old, he's got all the talent in the world, all the potential. He's just got to go and work on it.
Yeah, I agree. I want to see him take some time off, like you said. Work on that striking and then come back. Should be a better fighter all around. Should have funner fights too, because it's always more fun if it's more competitive. That'll pretty much wrap up that event, because we don't spend all this episode on that. We'll jump straight... Well, before we get on to the next UFC event, I just want to mention Clarissa Shields made her PFL debut. I can't even remember the name of the person she fought. But, she got that TKO win in the third round after fighting adversity in those first 3 rounds. Got taken down multiple times. Was able to defend the head-arm triangles. Was able to defend the submissions beautifully. Got up to her feet a couple of times there, but seemed to be putting herself in the grappling exchanges. Like on the feet, she'd land something and then she'd chase her down and get swept and end up on her back. What do you think of her debut?
Yeah, I think she showed everything you needed to show. It's not really... It's not really worth watching if she goes out there and knocks the person out with the first punch she throws, because we know how good she is. She's a striker. She's one of the best female boxers we've ever seen. So that's not what we wanted to see, and we've seen what we wanted to see. She had a lot on the ground. Obviously, she got outgunned for most of it, but she survived. And you think once one of these girls gets to the floor, she should be able to submit her. And before the fight, I was looking for odds on Brittany Elkin because I wanted to bet her. I thought she had... Her record weren't the most impressive, but she'd been in there with some good girls, and she'd got a couple of wins where I was thinking she really should be able to, if any sort of fighter at this point, should be able to get Shields down and submit her, because there's only so much you can learn in a few months. So I'm glad I didn't put that bet on now, because Shields, she survived, she rallied, and she got the finish on the floor as well, which I'm sure she's really happy about. So lots of positives to take. She's not going to be fighting Amanda Nunes or Kayla Harrison anytime soon, but she's talented. She's got a lot to offer, and if she actually commits to MMA, I'm sure she'd be a very good fighter. It's just, is she going to do that, or is she going to stay in boxing or try and do both? I don't think you can do both. Pick one or the other. But yeah, brilliant stuff for me. You can't hate on it, and you've got to like these. We're always saying it's always MMA going over to boxing, so it's nice when some of the girls, Holly Holmes had success, Amanda Serrano, and now Clarissa Shields has come over.
Yeah, no, it's always good to see. Well, anyway, we'll jump on to UFC Fight Night, the Korean Zombie versus Dan Ige. A fight that was pretty intriguing when I heard it first booked, but now breaking it down, this one could be a really, really fun war, don't you think?
Yeah, it's got war written all over it. Both of them have got really strong chins. Both of them like to scrap. I can't see anything other than a 5-round war. You know, yeah, it's going to be an epic one. I think it goes into later round. Potentially that's how someone could get a finish. But I see both of these guys, you know, hanging in there, hanging tough and giving us an absolute show. And it's worthy of being a main event. You know, Korean Zombie's been a star for ages. Ige's just breaking into that, you know, star power type stuff right now. So yeah, really fun fight. I actually don't know who I'm picking because I don't think Korean Zombie looked too good last time out, and he'd had a layoff before that, hadn't he? So I'd expect Danny Ige as the fresher man. The more, you know, he's competing a lot. He's been in there a lot lately. He might be the favorite, but I'm not sure. Zombie's such a tough guy and still one of the top guys at this point.
Look, I was going to ask you to pick straight after you got off that tangent, but I think in this fight, the factor is going to be the speed of Ige and the chin of Ige, right? They both got good chins, but I think Ige's just fast with his hands. I think he's going to land better shots on the Korean Zombie, and his chin should hold up. We saw in that war with Calvin Kattar, he didn't get knocked out, did he? That was a decision, right? Calvin Kattar beat him in by decision?
Yeah, it was a decision, and he took a lot in that fight as well. So there's not an issue with Danny Gage's chin. We've seen him in there with Barboza as well. He's a tough guy, and I don't think Zombie's gonna have anything that he hasn't seen before in terms of, you know, power, because Calvin Kattar is probably one of the strongest punchers at that division.
Yeah, and look, so I'm taking Ige in this one, but I understand why it would be tough to make a pick here. It wouldn't surprise me if the Korean Zombie can get him out of there. Look, I don't know. I can't see Zombie winning a decision here. Am I crazy for saying that?
The problem with Zombie for me at this point, as we've just been speaking about with Shields, you need to commit to MMA, and I don't think it's any fault of his own, but he's had a lot of time off, hasn't he? Over the years, and I think even since he came back, when was it? Yeah, it was 2013 to 2017, and since he's come back, I've got to be honest, I don't think he's looked the same. Obviously, he had that terrible loss to Yaya Rodriguez, but he looked good in that fight. He looked good against Frankie Edgar, sorry, and Moicano. Then that Ortega fight, he didn't look at it at all, and I know he got caught with that spinning elbow, and I think that could be a route to victory for all of his opponents now, because he wades in, it seems to be blind, and you can catch him with that type of stuff. And he was saying after that, he doesn't remember the rest of the fight. So he was effectively literally a zombie on his feet walking through that fight. So yeah, I give the edge to Ige, and I do like Zombie. I just don't think he's the fighter he once was.
No, I understand that. We'll keep rolling through these as well. Alexei Olenek taking on Sergey Spivak, which is interesting because I believe I read that Alexei Olenek was retired, but seems not to be the case. He's gone for his 60th win in this one against Spivak, and I think this is definitely a winnable fight for him because Spivak's shown he loves to grapple, right? And if you're going to grapple against anyone, Olenek's not the right guy to be grappling with. And so this fight could play into Olenek's favor. What do you think?
Yeah, I think Olenek's one of them guys, although he's in his 40s, I think at heavyweight, it kind of evens itself out. It's heavyweight's made for the older guys, and I expect him to look quite decent in this fight. Spivak's a good prospect. Olenek's like a wily veteran, so if you can get through Olenek, I think you're doing well. You're onto the right type of stuff. So who was his last fight, Olenek? It was Dorcas, wasn't it? Dorcas. Yeah. Dorcas came through that. Derek Lewis before that. I think there's a very clear way of winning this for Spivak. He needs to go out and put punches on him, try and knock him out. Don't entertain the grappling game at all. It's not worth it. Olenek will tie it up. He will pull something off. Yeah, and I hope that's what Spivak does. I hope he tries to avoid the floor. And Olenek is not great on the feet at all. So even if Spivak doesn't, you know, particularly fancy as striking against some of these top guys, you know, the Tom Aspinalls, the Dorcases, or these guys, I think against Olenek, it's the way to go, because that's really his only route to victory in this fight.
It'll be interesting if we see Olenek get a 60th win. That's probably the highest amount of wins anyone in the UFC has. Not all in the UFC, but just in general, 60 wins is a pretty crazy milestone. We'll move on. Tim Means taking on Danny Roberts. Thoughts on that one?
Okay, this is my pick for fight tonight. This will deliver. I'm almost sure of it. You know, Tim Means is a savage. Danny Roberts is never in a dull fight either. So I'm pretty confident this one. I'm making a thorough pick. I'm thinking about it a lot. Yeah, we spoke to Tim Means. James spoke to Tim Means for us. He's game. He's looking for a vicious knockout. Danny Roberts is from England. He used to train in Liverpool. I'm not sure where he trains now, but he's one of our guys. So I'm rooting for him big time. But he's got a tough ass. Tim Means is a savage. He's coming off that big win over Perry, and he'll be feeling confident as hell of getting into that mix and starting to mix it with the best once he's got through Roberts. But he's a puncher, so Means has got to look out. Really, really fun fight. I expect it to be a war for 3 rounds.
All right, guys, note that one down. Final of the night there. Before that, a really fun fight. I know both of us are looking forward to this one. Chito Vera taking on Davey Grant. This is a rematch. The first fight, Grant got by decision. I think both fighters have gotten much better since then. Davey Grant, even though I've counted him out many times, his last few fights has just looked insane, like a knockout machine. Vera's looked pretty good. Even in the Aldo fight, he looked pretty good, but he just threw that one away in the third. Who do you think takes this one? It's a hard one to pick, isn't it? Just because of how good Grant's looked recently.
It's hard not to go with Marvin just because he's been mixing it with the top guys for a while now, haven't you? And I'd say, Davey Grant, although he's come back, he also took a lot of time off. Or I think not taking time off, but he had a lot of time off. So I expect Vera to win, but as you said, you can never count Davey Grant out. He's such a savage, he's such a puncher. He's so game, but his style is he's not scared to take one to give one. And I think Vera's the same. So we could see this is another potential fight tonight, but you'd expect Vera at this age, I think he's about 27, 28. His time is now, and he should be beating someone like Davey Grant. But as you said, never write off Davey Grant. He's another guy like Brendan Moreno, who's such a lovely guy. He's really infectious when you speak to him. So I'm obviously rooting for him. He's one of ours as well. But Vera, I'm sure he'll want that win back, and I think he might get it.
Yeah, I'm taking Vera as well. The big thing here is that Vera's never been finished. He's never lost by knockout or submission. And he's been in there with some savages. Jose Aldo, everyone rates Sean O'Malley. He was in there with Sean O'Malley. And even before that, he's had wars and he's just never been done. So I can't really see Davey getting him done in this one. But like I said, I didn't think that about Jonathan Martinez either. And he got finished for Davey Grant. So look, I'm taking Vera. But would I be shocked if Grant gets a knockout here? Not really. Because he's just blown my mind every time he's fought recently. But yeah, any last thoughts on that? We'll move on.
Just a fun fight, and I just think it's a great bit of matchmaking. Obviously, it's a rematch, but it was so long ago. I think it was, what fight was it for? It was a Marvin Vettori, like 11 fights or 10 fights, something like that. It was so long ago, and so much has happened in between. And Vera's gone on, and he's become this guy. He took O'Malley's O. He's become a star, and now to put him in with Davey Grant all the years on it, it's a fun fight, and I can't wait. As you said, he's never been knocked out. Davey Grant's a tough guy as well, so it's got war all over it as well. There's a lot of good fights on this card.
Yeah, absolutely. Before that, we have Wellington Turman versus Bruno Silva. For the life of me, I can't remember either of these guys. Do you have any thoughts on this fight?
Wellington rings a bell. Yeah, he went I remember his last fight against Andrew Sanchez. He didn't look great at all in that one. He lost first round KO punch. Thought he got a win over Marco Perez and then dropped the split decision to Carl Robinson. So this is a weird card where there's a lot of fun fights on there, but it's in terms of name value, and we've got Olenek in the co-main event. So it's not. It's a weird one because to have this in front of Matt Brown against Diego Lima is strange. So I haven't. I'm trying to picture Bruno Silva. It's a pretty common name. Let me have a look.
That's all right. We can skip this one if you got no thoughts on it.
I just want to see if his name rings me a bell. As soon as I see his record, I might remember. Mm-hmm. So, oh yeah, he beat JP Buys. I remember that one now. Yeah, I'd back him. I think he looked good. I think he's looked good in both his UFC fights. It was JP Buys. I remember that win, and then last time he beat Victor Ortiz with a knockout as well. So 2 knockouts on the bounce. You'd fancy him to be the favourite in this one, but besides that, not got too much to say about it.
Okay, opening the main card, Matt Brown versus Diego Lima. After seeing what Bilal Mahaba was able to do to Diego Lima with just pressure, I think there's a game plan here for Matt Brown to win this easily. Just walk him down, put him onto the cage, keep your distance so you don't get caught, and just pick him apart, if I can speak. What do you see in this one? Do you think that Matt Brown can get it done?
Yeah, I think it's backs to the wall for Matt Brown right now. I think it's win or he'll be the next one to go in terms of these welterweight legends. Damon Maia looks to be on his way out. I think Matt Brown could be next if he doesn't win this. And as you said, there's a route to victory in terms of getting Liam to the floor and being able to do that. And Brown's been known for it throughout his career, but as I say quite often, I am something of an ageist, and he's hit that 40 mark now. He's just lost to Carlos Condit, who, you know, has been on a long layoff himself and suffering loads of losses. He's not at the top of his game anymore. I'm sure he'll admit that. So, yeah, tough one for Matt Brown. It's all on the line. It's a big fight over the card, and I'd like to back him to win. I think he can get it done, and it is a route to victory, as I said. So, but Diego Lima's no slouch, so I'm sure he'll be looking to get a big name on his record.
Absolutely, and that rounds out the main card. Any prelims you want to speak about? Otherwise, we can wrap it up there.
Julian Erosa's back in action against Choi, which is a good fight. I like that one. Besides that, Casey O'Neill, is she from your ways? Or is she Scottish?
She's from Australia.
There's a mixture. And then that Jandaroba, I really liked her last time. Who was she in there with last? Was it Mackenzie Dern? Yeah, that was a sick fight. So always excited to see her in action. So it's a good card. It's not necessarily, you know, the most name value, but we've just had, you know, one of the biggest cards of the year. We're just coming off that now. So, but there's a lot of fun fights. I think, especially we picked like the main event's a strong one. We've got a couple of awards on that main card as well. So, and I'm sure some of these people will deliver. So good card, and I look forward to watching it.
Absolutely. Is there any news you want to grab, or you reckon we just wrap it up?
No, it's all UFC 263 stuff at this point. You know, it's still the week's just starting, and we're getting that reaction. So, yeah, it's been fun speaking, and we're off the back of a great event. I always feel great after these events, and the fact that we always keep getting another event after with the fun fights we've just been speaking about. It's great to speak about them too.
Yeah, and the rest of the month and July is just stacked. You got Cyril Gain versus Volkov. You got Conor versus Poirier 3, Holloway versus Rodriguez. Just non-stop action. Sandhagen versus Dillashaw after that, and then UFC 265. So we're in for a month of just awesome fights. Should be good to preview all those and talk about those. But for now, that'll wrap it up. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll speak to you next week to recap the card.
Thanks, guys.
Make sure to subscribe to the LowKick MMA YouTube channel for all the latest news, event previews, and interviews with some of the biggest stars in MMA.